Have you ever wondered what is inside your ready-to-wear coat? Today we're going to find out. Hello everybody, June here. I am obsessed with coats, making them, wearing them, even before I moved anywhere where I actually needed coats. But I don't know what's inside a ready-to-wear coat. And so when the opportunity presented itself for me to find out, I thought, I need to make a video about that because if I'm interested in this, I'm sure there's other people out there who are also interested. So we are going to cut up this ready-to-wear coat and see what's in it. Now, before you panic, this is a coat that I have had for 20 years. And 2 winters ago, I pulled it out to wear and I realized that not only was it threadbare in a lot of parts, including the cuffs, but it also has a hole back here in the butt. So it is a pretty big hole, which means I can't really wear it. So the coat has had its good run. It's time to serve one last purpose. So I'm doing this out of curiosity, yes, but also because I want to learn. Because one of the ways in which we learn to become better dressmakers, seamstresses, what have you, is to see how professionals do it. And now, of course, this is a garment that is made for the mass market, but it still is a good example of what is actually in ready to wear. Most of us don't buy ready to wear in the multi-thousands of dollar range, and neither is this coat. This coat I bought it a long time ago and I can't remember for certain, but I'm pretty sure that it was under $100 all those years ago. So this is more or less the kind of coat that you would buy if you walked into, say, a Macy's or something like that to buy a coat. So let's get to cutting. Right off the bat, you can see that this is a coat with a hood and a zipper. And inside, of course, there's a lining. This is a Colebrook coat, by the way, and the shell is 80% wool, 20% nylon, and the lining is 100% polyester. I knew that already. What I'm actually interested in is what's between the lining and the shell fabric. One thing I do want you to notice is the lining has this pleat here that makes it easy for the fabric to move around your body without putting strain on the main fabric. And this is not something that a lot of coat patterns have. And if you are making a coat pattern that doesn't have that pleat in the lining, it is not that difficult to make. All you have to do is when you cut your lining on the fold to cut it, say, about an inch away from the actual fold. That way you have that 2-inch pleat there. But that's a story for another day. But I do want to point that out. And it goes all the way to here. And then for the hem, they just eased the lining into the hem without a pleat. And there's a lot of talking and not enough cutting. So, let's start from the hem. Let's start from the hem and see how things look in there. And yes, I am very nervous because there's only one shot to do this. Oh my gosh, cutting. Okay. I can already see that it has some interfacing. And, oh, I'm already seeing some things I like and I wasn't expecting. So I'm just gonna cut all this and come back to you when the lining is completely out. Okay, so the lining is not fully out, but the lining was definitely bagged, which again, not surprising considering that it is the quickest way to line a coat. And people who are making coats for this kind of market are not taking the time to put in a lining by hand. So bagging a lining is quick, and it is what I was expecting in this coat. Okay, so the lining is fully out of the coat, and Let's see. So there is some interfacing here. As you can see, it looks like a non-woven interfacing. It is non-woven. I can pull it off. And it's not my preferred method to interface coats, but at least it's interfaced. I've seen some, like Zara and H&M coats that are not interfaced. So it's the same interfacing both on the front of the coat and on the facing. And they also use the same interfacing in the hems, which I'm glad they use interfacing in the hem because that helps both with the life of the coat in the hem so that it doesn't wear down as quickly, but also in how the coat hangs. And they did the same for the sleeve hems, and they have shoulder pads, which I knew from wearing. And they actually look to be pretty decent material. And there's also a sleeve head. If you have ever worn a jacket or a coat without this here, supporting the seam at the shoulder, you'll notice that it sort of falls, doesn't fall, sort of like sinks in, and it's not actually nice and rounded like a coat or a jacket should be. So I'm surprised that there is a sleeve head. And they have also stayed the shoulder seam so that it doesn't stretch, which, quite frankly, I'm surprised that they did at this price point. But that is really it for the structure. There's the same interfacing on the yoke. This is the back yoke of the coat. And there's interfacing in the facing. That's it for inner structure. I am not surprised that that's it because, again, the price point of this coat. But I'm also surprised that the coat lasted for so long with so little inner structure. Now, I have gotten this dry cleaned a few times, but that shouldn't affect the inner guts of a coat. Still surprised by the sleeve heads. These are actually pretty big shoulder pads. Probably much bigger than I would choose if I was making the coat myself, but I think as big as they need to be quite honest with you. And then there is the hood, is the only part that I have not looked at. Oh, one more thing I want to point out here. So you can see from the outside that the seams are top stitched. And on the inside, you can see that they have basically pressed the seams to one side and then top stitched. It's not perfect. Here you can see that they missed. So they accidentally folded one of the seams and stitched on top of it. But again, nobody sees that. So even if you do that at home, nobody's gonna see it. If I hadn't opened this, I wouldn't have known. And how many people go around cutting their coats open? I don't know. I don't think many. One other thing I want you to see here is that they have notched the fabric. And you can see the notches. They're notched almost all the way to the seam line. And a lot of times people will take the time, people who sew at home, will take the time and rather than notch the fabric, they'll mark it with chalk or they'll mark it with a pencil. I notch. I like to just clip things because it's easier. And a lot of the times when you're making a lined garment, nobody's going to see inside. So if you leave your notches, that's fine. So these two seams are in the back and they are top stitched like I showed you. This seam is that the princess? No, it's a side-ish seam on a panel. Right, so the front side seam, this is the actual side seam. And that one, rather than being pressed to one side and then top stitched, It's just pressed open and left there. There is no support for the pocket as far as interfacing goes, aside from what's already on this side of the coat. So that surprised me, because normally when you're going to sew a pocket, you add interfacing to where you're going to sew the top of the pocket for structure. And because it's an area of a lot of stress, so when you put your hands in there, it tends to pull down. Now you have to keep in mind that all of my sewing experience is really home sewing, and some things I have picked up from my classes at FIT. I have no industry sewing experience, so I don't know whether the ready-to-wear market does pockets like this, or whether this is a particular construction method to this particular brand. But there's that. Oh, they did tack the facings down with some very large cross stitches, or herringbone stitches. So that is that seam here that is not top stitched. I bet that if I open the pocket, I'm going to find that this flap is also interlined, or not interlined, interfaced is the word I'm looking for. It's interfaced, and in fact it is. And I bet that this top bit here is also interfaced. Let's see. And it is. Actually, the whole pocket, oh no, not the whole pocket. The pocket is, let's cut this pocket because there's some interesting stuff in there. So the whole front pocket piece is actually interfaced, but not the lining, which is normal. And again, this is just a non-woven interfacing, the kind you iron on, but it's not actually fabric, it's more like paper. Comes off very easily. And last, let's look at this hood, because I have no idea what's gonna be inside this hood. So the hood is a 3-piece hood. So you have the center bit here, and then the 2 side pieces, and they are top stitched, and there's 2. So the inside and the outside are the same. Let's see if there is any kind of structure in there. I can already see that there isn't any kind of structure in the main part of the hood, but they have in fact interfaced the bits where there is a seam that attaches the hood to the coat, and then the 2 pieces of the hood. So all around there. Oh. They have, oh, I see. So for the hood to stay together, what they have done is, so these seams are stitched separately. So each, the inside and the outside of the hood are stitched separately, and then top stitched separately. But to keep them together, ones that are on the head, what they have done is apply these little bits of lining in the form of a tape, keeping the hoods together, the inside and the outside of the hood. I have never made anything with a hood, so I don't know if that is what they do in home sewing patterns too, but that is very clever. So the hood is separated, and that is the structure inside. There isn't interfacing in the center panels of the hood. So there you have it. That is the inner structure of a ready-to-wear coat in the about $100 range. 20 years ago, I have no idea what this would cost now. It has, I guess, more or less the same amount of structure that I expected it to have. I didn't expect it to be extremely high quality interfacings or anything of the sort. I certainly did not expect it to be traditionally tailored. First of all, it didn't feel it, and second, at that price point, you're not going to get something that is traditionally tailored. But it nevertheless lasted me 20 years, and it has allowed me to see what these coats look like on the inside when they are made at a factory, that they are not always perfect, they have mistakes. Everything is made by humans. So when you think about your clothes, think about the people who made it. Everything is handmade. Sometimes it's handmade by you, sometimes it's handmade by somebody else, but nobody's perfect. Even things that are made in a factory where they make these things day in and day out for years and years and years. So I hope that was interesting, certainly as interesting as it was for me, because I have been waiting for this for a couple of winters. I have been saving this coat for this, and I just had not gotten around to making this video. But here it is. Thank you so much for watching. I hope that you have learned something. I hope that you can take something away from this video, and expect to see more coats from me, because I am obviously coat obsessed. Thank you so much for watching. I will see you next time. Bye. And in case you're wondering, I am absolutely going to recycle the zipper because it's still perfectly fine.